Pilger wrote of 100,000 or maybe 200,000 being mown down, shot in the back as they retreated. And that just still horrifies me. And that has been lost. That you can't even properly research this. I tried about a year or two ago. Where are the papers on this? The word, whatever. The stuff that went on in GW1, which was horrifying. There's terrible stuff that then went on in other wars. But the very poor journalism at the end of the day just... In fact, it's even beyond the poor journalism. This is why Slavenka Drakulic's book, I think, is one of the best ever, because she rightly looked at what happened in Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, and she rightly asked questions. That's what her book essentially is almost about. This could happen anywhere, and that's the kind of writing that I still think of that book, and it rightly, in a good way, sets my approach to life, and has done ever since I read it, more than any other book, in fact. Be careful. Even in this society, things could suddenly turn nasty. And so you have two absolutely, even though both of them in and of themselves are terrible tragedies, and just as October the 7th was the most terrible, crazy, awful tragedy for every single person who even got a cut on their fucking finger. You're lucky. Don't think that the world, by sort of taking these two rather the world closer to Britain than the Gulf Wars, has taken this such a terrible turn that you should shut off. No, you're actually luckier than my generation. Luckier. Because you've got what's called a fait accompli. These things are terrible realities nobody can argue with. I don't think anybody can really argue with what Mr. Putin said, that Boris Johnson was the one who is essentially, you could almost say, responsible for 200,000 terrible injuries and 30,000, 40,000 deaths. So, you got it easy. It makes it, when you've got something inside of you which is worse actually than we had, or rather, the PR of it, the way it's sitting there, is crystal clear, tragic, horrible. That makes your next 20, 30, 40 years, if you're somebody who takes international affairs and the human rights internationally seriously, you got it easier. And thus, you may be able to, because it's the confusion, it's the doubt, it's the gnawing away. Well, could I ever really convince anybody? That's what makes it harder. And not that I took part in being a peace speaker. I got diverted myself into two other things: the justice connected with families, etc., and civil courts, and green world. But the latter theoretically being connected. But you got it easier. I just like going to say it again. You won't believe it. You if you're somebody who's like, I don't even want to talk to anybody ever again because of what's happened to this little girl this week, you've actually got it easier. When there are chances for better, for reform of the political worldwide or just local politics in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you have it easier. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about.